Hello everyone, greetings of the day. So the previous video what we have seen is the basic understanding of closure and the essential things what we have to know about the closure. Here I'm going to explain about the advanced concepts in closure. See, this is a function as usual and we have a parameter here. The parameter type is a closure. That closure is accepting a string as parameter and returning a string. This is the function body, and here is the place where the closure call is happening. If we option click on this destination, we'll be knowing that this is a function call with the trailing closure syntax as the condition satisfying here that the function having the last parameter is a closure means we can use the trailing closure syntax. Here we have only one parameter and that too a closure. So for the function call we are here using the trailing closure syntax. Once we call this, it will reach this function and execute the function body. And here is the place where the closure call is happening. For the closure, we are passing this string value. So it will reach us here and we are using that inside the body. And we are returning this string. This portion will replace here and that will get printed. If we execute this, we'll get the result as I am going to visit India next week. India is the parameter that we have provided and that we'll use here and we will return this string. Now let's see how to simplify the syntax of this function call. Here for the parameter of the closure, Swift knows that the parameter of this function need to be a string value. So we don't want to explicitly mention here again that. So we can remove it. So this is same as the before, but we didn't explicitly mentioning the parameter type as string for this closure. This also, when we execute, this also provide the same result as before. In another way also we can simplify this. That is, we don't want to explicitly mention the return type because here we are returning the string value, so the Swift can infer that it will return a string. When we execute this again, we will be getting the same result as above. Still, there are ways to simplify this. Since this closure has a single line of code, this need to be definitely returned. So we don't want to mention this return keyword as well. Again, if we execute the same, we'll be getting the same result. Swift has a shorthand syntax that lets you go even shorter. Rather than writing place in, we can let Swift provide automatic names for the closures parameter. These are named with $sign, then a number counting from 0. So this again we can make shorter as we can remove this place in and in the place of here we can keep a $sign and the counting of parameters starts from 0. If we have more parameters, it's counting from 0, 1, 2 like that. So since here we have only one parameter, I'm mentioning a $sign and 0. If I'm again executing this, I'll be getting the result as same. I am going to visit India next week. So this is the shorthand syntax for the closure. See, in this function, we are having one parameter and that is of closure, but that closure is accepting more than one parameter, that is string and int. So, as I mentioned here in the shorthand syntax, we are providing that for the first parameter we are mentioning as $0 and for the second parameter we are mentioning as $1. If we have more parameters, the count goes forward. While calling the closure, see here, we are providing two parameters, that is India is a string and 3 is an integer value. While we print this, we will get the result as I am going to visit India in next 3 weeks. That will be the result. So this is the closure that is having multiple parameters. Closure having multiple parameters, that is two parameters here we have. The next we are going to see is returning closure from a function. See, in this example, we have provided a closure as an input parameter. So this is a closure that we are providing for this function as an input parameter. Now the same you see here, there is no input parameter for this function, but we are returning a closure. This is a closure that we are returning for this function. See, we have mentioned the return keyword for this function and we are returning this is a closure. This closure is accepting one parameter and returning void. For that accepting parameter, we have used in the dollars and zero that we have learned before now. Let's see how to call this function. Since this function doesn't have any input parameter, we can call directly. That is, we have assigned the function to a constant result. So this function is called and this function is returning a closure. This closure will be returned to this result, and in this result, that is, it is a closure now and that is accepting one parameter and we are providing return London. Then this execution will happen. This London will be replaced here and we'll get the result as I am going to London. I'll be hiding this and executing the function. I'll get the result as I am going to London. So this is the function that is returning a closure. Here this closure is accepting one parameter and that is returning void. The next topic what we are going to see is capturing values in closure. Closures in Swift can capture and store references to any variables and constants from the context in which they are defined. This is capturing values. I will explain this in code. See, this is a function. In this function, it is accepting a parameter and returning a closure. So I have kept the return keyword and this is the closure that we are returning. Before that, I have mentioned a variable of total equal to 0 and I'm calling the function here. If I call this function, this closure will get returned to the increment by 2, and after that I'm calling that closure here and printing this. So I'm passing the parameter for this function as 2. So increment amount will be 2 and it will enter here and it will calculate that total equal to 0 plus 2, that is total will be 2 now. After that I'm calling the closure here. While printing, I'll get the result as 2. The same function again I'm calling here. Increment amount I'm passing as 2. So the total is 0 and then the total plus the increment amount will getting the value as 2. If I execute this, I'll get the result as 2 and 2. Let's see. I'm commenting out this and calling the closure again. So I have called the function one time and I'm calling the closure here for the three time. So initially the total value is 2. Again I'm calling this closure so that Swift will remember the value of this total. So here this will be 4, here this will be 6. So while I'm executing this, I'll get the result as 2, 4 and 6. That is, the closure capture and retains a reference to the total variable even after the function has finished the execution. See, here we have called the function one time and the function has finished the execution by returning the closure here. After that, we are executing the closure here again and again. So that time closure captures and retains a reference to the total. Because of that, here the total is we are getting as 2 and here this is 4 and here there is 6. Let's see one more example to understand the concept of capturing in closure. Here I have defined a function with no parameters and that returning a closure here. That closure is accepting a string and returning void. Inside the function body I have defined a counter. See, this counter is defined in the function body, not in the closure. Okay, so in the closure I'm just incrementing the counter and printing a value. So when I call this function, this closure will be assigned to this result and again we are calling the closure here. As the closure is accepting a parameter, we are sending this string and we'll be getting the result as here I have executed the closure 3 times. So first time this closure will execute and it will come here and the counter value it is taking as 1 and I am going to, this is the parameter that we have provided. Since it is only having one parameter, we have mentioned as dollar and 0. So 1 I am going to London, it will print like this. Again we are calling the closure, directly it will reach here. That time the counter value will be incremented as 2. This is because of the retaining reference values. This is the capturing concept. Again it will enter as 2 and again the counter value will be incremented when we call the closure for the third time and we'll getting the result as 1, 2 and 3. So this is the capturing value in closure. With this we are wrapping up the session for today. Thank you.